If Apple, for instance, sees what's coming and decides they're going to get 10 years worth of silver, and then Panasonic sees what that does to the price, what could happen? Recently, the COMEX has added a whole bunch, the LBMA, I'm sorry, there's been a whole bunch of new hallmarks of bars that have been approved. Do you think that that's because of physical shortages happening? Because the physical demand, which is monetary demand now, this is investors protecting themselves against the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. They see all of the problems in the economy. They're finally seeing these things. This pandemic has sort of pulled away some of the veil that was there. And so what do you think about some of the things that have been changing recently on the commodities exchange? The people that are standing for delivery now instead of just settling in cash, and so on.
People don't know how tight these markets are. We're talking about silver specifically. I've had major silver consumers, in my office, face to face. I've asked them directly, how much silver do you use in a year? They won't tell me. They're paranoid that you and I are going to find out how tight this market is. They're paranoid there to see what happened in the cobalt market or the nickel market or the uranium market or any of these markets that all of a sudden the hedge funds decide to front run industry, because they do that, and all of a sudden the price of that commodity skyrockets in price, and it's not in the best interest of Samsung or Sony or Tesla or whomever the case may be to have one of their key commodities go up by 5 or 10 times. So they keep this information very, very tight. And the banks know what the demand is. So, Sony's given their order to JP Morgan to deliver X amount of silver to whatever ports around the world over the next 12-month period. So that supply is in place. JP Morgan's got it from a miner. They've got contracts in place. They know where it's coming from. And they know the margin of error. They know, okay, if we somehow can't get it there, we have an alternative to get it there, and so on and so forth. But it's all, the banks control the entire supply chain of the precious metals, silver and gold, and they control it very well. But if something anomalous happens, like all of a sudden investment demand picks up, there's not enough refineries out there to even meet that demand. And the miners can't meet the demand either because they have commitments to the banks. So all of a sudden you've got, there's just no, so any silver that's out there in any kind of retail form gets gobbled up almost instantly. And for us, we sell retail silver, and we send an order into Scottsdale Mint, for example. We'll send them 30,000 ounces. It takes them 4 to 6 months to turn that around because they have demands from government who needs the silver. They've got demands from industry who needs the silver. So the retail guy is the last one in the chain that gets any metal, and they're the ones that also pay the most.
Somebody just wrote an article about how much jewelry, silver there is in jewelry and in silverware and all of this above ground silver that we're not taking into consideration. Except you can't buy that stuff through an ETF. It has to go and get melted down and re-refined. It's sterling silver, and investment grade silver is 999 fine silver. And so in 1980, there was something called the Big Melt, and it's exactly what you're talking about. The refineries got all backed up, months and years backed up. And so if you didn't have investment grade silver, you might be able to get 30% of spot because nobody wanted to sit on it for 2 years waiting for it to get refined and poured into a bar.
Well, I think by opening up a number of refineries that are LBMA or COMEX certified is a good thing, but and it could be even good for First Majestic because one of the hindrances in our business, in the mining business, is actually producing our own refined product. and I would love to be able to do it, but we can't because the refined product that we would produce would not be certified, so it couldn't be marketed. It could be just as good as an LBMA stamped bar of equal quality, but we couldn't sell it. So with those rules loosening up, it could be actually be good for the mining sector, but the risks also increase because it could increase the amount of fraud. You hear the tungsten bars and things like that. So, hopefully there's enough checks and balances in place to protect, the end purchaser.
Yeah, the LBMA, there were 60, I'm looking at an article right now, so I'm not looking directly at the camera, but as of July, this last July, there were 65 LBMA approved refineries, so the hallmarks that are acceptable in the exchange vaults. And they have just increased that by another 60. So there's 65 LBMA have been added. I'm sorry, there were 75, and they just added another 65, and then there were more. So the percentage increase, it's 140% increase in the number of silver bar brands compared to July 27th of this year. So it seems to me that, you were talking about how tight this market is. It doesn't take too many people standing for delivery to cause the LBMA to panic and start adding all of these different hallmarks to the just to be able to conceal the fraud a little bit longer, because it basically is a fraud when they're keeping it this tight. Now, years ago, Dave Morgan used to talk about, all it'll take is one company like Apple saying, well, we can, quite a few years ago when oil was down at like $10 a barrel, Southwest Airlines bought a whole bunch of futures that went out years. And so they had cheap jet fuel for years, and they had an advantage. Everything started rising after 1999 or whenever it was that it was $10 a barrel for crude. And that gave Southwest a huge advantage as far as their cost, and they grew faster. And so you were talking about the banks controlling the supply chain. When they're buying for these companies like Panasonic, though, they're not buying any more than like 3 months of production, are they? Three or 6 months at the most?
My understanding is that they do 12-month contracts. So when they Panasonic or Sony, they'll do their 2021 budget. So they'll be in discussions today, with JP Morgan, HSBC, or whomever, to try to put that order together, and they'll fix the price, for the entire year. And there are formulas they use so that the banks are protected to some degree, but it's as fixed as you can get.
Yeah, but if Apple, for instance, sees what's coming and decides they're going to get 10 years worth of silver, and then Panasonic sees what that does to the price, what could happen in this scenario?
I made a crazy prediction a couple of years ago, and because this is when 2014, 2015, when things were pretty ugly in the mining sector, and then I said, it makes perfect sense that the IT sector might as well just buy the mining sector. There's really no reason for the mining sector to stand as a lone industry. The gold and silver, the copper, it mostly gets consumed into commercial electronic products, and they're at the mercy of the supply, and copper's supply is dropping, silver supply is dropping, and these are two very important metals. And of course, zinc is a challenge as well. I think lead is the only metal out there that there's an abundance of, but lead's being used less and less now because it's quite a dirty metal. So nevertheless, these key components, wouldn't it make sense for Apple just to own their entire supply of all their metals that they need? And they could pick the entire silver industry up for about $16 billion.
Yep, and they would have a competitive advantage against everybody else that's using. So, by the way, I've had a 2010 Tesla Roadster, 2011, a 2012 Model S, and I've got a dual motor performance right now. So when you mention Tesla and the use of silver, and I just bought 50 solar panels and 3 Tesla Powerwalls because I'm getting a ranch shortly.
You got a ton of silver you're driving on.
Yes.
And Tesla won't tell you how much, but we estimate that there's at least 1 kilo of silver, could be upwards of 3 kilos of silver in one of those cars.
Wow. I had no idea. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because there's 6,000 connections, like there's 6,000 batteries, and each one of those connections is silver.
Later today is battery day, and I have a feeling they're announcing a new battery, and it's going to reduce the number of cells in the pack. So,
okay, well,
number of connections is probably going to be cut down fairly dramatically. But lately, some large funds, like pension funds and things like that, are starting to announce that they're going to go into gold. Have any large funds started coming towards silver yet?
Silver is kind of this weird metal because, I talk to these fund managers and they're all, half my age in most cases. And, they look at silver as the poor man's gold. And so they tend to gravitate towards gold. And, I try to educate them that they're totally different metals. I look at gold as money, and then I look at silver as a strategic metal. And, being a strategic metal, it's something we need as the human race.
Can I interrupt you just 1 second?
Sure.
It's a strategic metal that becomes money once in a while. When people rush into gold and it becomes too expensive, they rush into silver for monetary demand, not for. And by the way, I always differentiate between fiat currencies and real money. And I never call the dollar, if I can help it, I never call it money. It's currency. Gold and silver are money. Those are the only things that are money. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, and look, and I agree with you, but just to finish my point, gold, the world inventories of gold are increasing every year. World inventories of silver are decreasing every year. The above ground supplies of silver are dropping like a rock. And that doesn't seem to end, and it's not going to end. And the only thing that could change that is price, because there are, places around the world that, have, very, very low grade silver mines that, are 20 grams, 30 grams, you got an ounce of silver in the rock, but it's going to cost you probably $200 or $300 a ton to mine it because it's so low grade and so deep into the Earth's crust. You need, triple digit silver just to make those low grade silver mines ever economic to mine. And, how far are we away from that? I don't know. But at current metal prices, we can't mine any more silver, period.
When these funds do start rushing into this, I think that a lot of these funds don't understand the opportunity when a few of them start rushing into such a minuscule market. When I wrote my book, the size of the silver market was 1/300th that of the gold market. I don't know what it is today, but it can't absorb a lot of funds without the prices skyrocketing.
Well, look, it's going to happen. It's hard to look at magnitudes, right? And we none of us have a crystal ball. I can measure what happened in my previous career at a copper company. So the copper company I formed, a company called First Quantum Minerals, it was pure copper, African-based, and today, very large copper company. I think it's got a $12 billion market cap or something along those lines. I've been gone for a long time. I left in 2000, but I put together a very pure portfolio based on my same theories of putting together a pure portfolio of silver in Mexico for First Majestic Silver. And purity is key to me because I believe that one day the institutional investor will wake up to the silver story and say, what can I buy? What I need to own silver, as they did in copper. Copper went from 60 cents to $4 from the year 2000 to 2008. And there was 2 or 3 copper companies that were pure enough to meet the purity criteria that the institutions wanted. That stock went from $3 to $140 a share over that period of time. Yeah, because there was nothing to buy. And so, in my opinion, I think a very similar type of thing is going to happen for First Majestic. We are the purest silver company in the world. Yes, there's others. There's other competitions, of course. But, when the money flows into such a small industry, it's going to have enormous impact on price of the metal itself and, of course, the companies that produce it.
Okay, can you tell us the name of your website and your YouTube channel?
Sure. The YouTube channel, we do have one, Mike. I actually don't know what it is, but firstmajestic.com website, my Twitter address, Keith_Neumeyer on Twitter. I do a fair amount of tweeting. I'm not on any other social media, but the YouTube channel is fairly new. We only set it up a couple of months ago, but have a look at that. I do, a fair amount of interviews, 1 or 2 a month, and we try to get them all there.
Okay. I want to thank you so much. This has been a great interview, and it was great finally meeting you. Somebody that I see eye to eye with, especially when it comes to triple-digit silver. Thanks a lot, Keith.
Well, I've been listening to you for many years, and I watch your videos at least once or twice a week, and it's a pleasure of mine to have a chance to speak face to face.
Thanks, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks for watching.